There's one thing that terrifies a narcissist more than any exposed truth. It's the moment a super empath walks away in silence. No rage, no drama, no demand for closure, just a powerful, unwavering silence that strips the manipulator of their control and leaves them alone to face the emptiness they can no longer fill. You see, when an average person leaves, it might bruise the narcissist's ego. But when a super empath, someone who once saw the good even in their destroyer, walks away for good, it's a final declaration: I see you for who you truly are, and I choose freedom. To the narcissist, this isn't just a loss, it's the collapse of their grand illusion of power. They don't just lose a partner, a source of supply, they lose the mirror that once reflected back the false image they so desperately wanted the world to believe. And then comes the panic. Not out of love, but because there's no one left to control, no one left to manipulate, no one left to play the role in their ready-made victim narrative. This video will take you deep into the terrifying stages a narcissist goes through when a super empath, the one who once loved them the most, walks away forever. You'll witness each mask fall, each illusion shatter, and each manipulative tactic lose its power. And more importantly, you'll discover why you are the one who truly holds the power. If you've ever lived in lies, been gaslit, or sacrificed yourself for the sake of loving a narcissist, this is the story you need to hear today. Stay until the end of the video, not just to understand them, but to finally set yourself free. When a narcissist enters your life, it's never by accident. They choose you deliberately. They choose the light. They choose the one with a strong yet compassionate soul, and if you are a super empath, then you are the ultimate prize on their list. A super empath doesn't just feel others' emotions, they vibrate at a higher frequency. They carry a heart that's been wounded but never hardened, a will that's gentle yet unbreakable. They've walked through pain and let it deepen them instead of turning them bitter. They love with sincerity, and they forgive not out of ignorance, but because they understand that every soul carries its own wounds. It is this deep understanding that gives super empaths an extraordinary level of patience. They don't flee when the relationship gets tough. They don't walk away when their partner is hurting. They stay, they believe, they try, they see potential even in the darkest of souls. And that, ironically, is what makes them perfect targets for narcissists. Narcissists don't look for the easy ones. They don't crave the weak. They seek the strong, the deep, the valuable. Because conquering, controlling, and draining someone like that makes them feel powerful. In their eyes, a super empath is not someone to love. They're a trophy. A reflection of an idealized image the narcissist wants to uphold. A mirror projecting a grandeur they can never truly possess on their own. In the beginning, the narcissist will appear perfect. They wear the mask of kindness, attentiveness, and deep connection. They read you like a book and hand you everything you ever wished for. They mirror your beliefs, your values, even your pain, until you believe you've finally found someone who truly understands you. And the super empath, always ready to embrace love, enters the relationship with purity and goodwill. But then, the game begins. The love quickly morphs into subtle tests, veiled criticisms, manipulations disguised as concern. The narcissist will begin to make you feel like you're never enough, not loving enough, not giving enough, not selfless enough. They'll push you into constantly proving your worth, and the super empath, because they understand people so deeply and long to preserve the bond, will keep enduring, thinking that if they just love harder, forgive more, try longer, the other person will change. But the narcissist doesn't want to change. They don't want healing, they want control. The upper hand in the power game they've been scripting all along. Every time you forgive, they see it as increased control. Every time you soften, they feel a deeper grip on your emotions. In their mind, you, the powerful super empath, have been tamed. What they didn't anticipate is this. the awakening of the super empath. Unlike regular empaths who may get pulled back by emotional ties, a super empath possesses an inner force that's different. They perceive the truth, even when it's hidden behind charm. They observe, they reconnect with themselves, and when that awareness becomes strong enough, they stop reacting. They don't cry, they don't beg, they don't argue anymore. They grow quiet, and they begin to pull away. That's when the narcissist's world starts to crack. A manipulator can handle anger, sadness, even resistance, but they're utterly lost in the face of calm, unwavering silence, especially from someone who once loved them with their whole soul. That silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate rejection of power. A wordless declaration, "I've seen enough, I know who you are, and I choose to walk away," without your permission. To the narcissist, this is unforgivable, because it's not just the loss of a relationship, it's the loss of control, the loss of someone who once made them feel powerful, the loss of the mirror that once reflected a grand illusion of their worth. And so, the quiet war begins. But this time, the strongest one isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the one who chose silence and freedom. There is a quiet moment that hits with the force of an earthquake. It's when the super empath, after a long journey of observing, enduring, forgiving and hoping, finally stands up and says, "Enough." But unlike most people, the super empath doesn't leave in bitterness. They don't need to scream, accuse or make a scene. Their departure isn't loud, but it sends shockwaves through the narcissist far more powerful than any outburst ever could. Before they walk away, the super empath often goes through a period of deep inner pain. They search their own soul. They question whether they were patient enough, loving enough. They replay every moment, every word, every small gesture, just to make sure they weren't the one who caused harm, because the last thing a super empath ever wants is to become the source of someone else's pain, even if they themselves are the ones bleeding. And that's the defining difference. A super empath doesn't walk away out of hate. They walk away because they have loved so deeply, so purely, that continuing to stay would mean destroying themselves just to hold on to someone who never wanted to be truly loved. They come to realize that trying to save someone who refuses to save themselves isn't love, it's emotional suicide. They understand that love cannot survive when one person is fighting while the other is manipulating, and they know that if they don't leave, they will lose themselves entirely. So they begin to detach from the old script. They stop reacting, they stop explaining, they stop chasing clarity or defending the truth. They let the narcissist hold on to whatever version of the story they need to protect their ego. The super empath no longer wants to win the game because they've finally understood the real victory is walking away from the game altogether. In silence, they begin preparing their exit. One thread at a time, they untangle the emotional, financial, familial, and social bonds. They clean house within their own soul. They reorganize their values. They start listening again, not to others, but to the voice inside they've ignored for far too long. And then they walk away. No chaos, no begging, no looking back. To the narcissist, this is the most jarring moment of all, because they can't comprehend what just happened. In their mind, the super empath was blindly loyal, the one who always comes back, the one who could never leave because they love me too much. But now, those illusions are shattered. The narcissist suddenly finds themselves lost. They have no script to deal with someone who has gone emotionally silent. Someone who is no longer angry, no longer jealous, no longer pleading. Someone who simply stands up, smiles gently, and walks away. It's a direct hit to their arrogance, not because they lost a relationship, but because they lost control. There's no one left to manipulate, no more emotional fuel to extract, no more roles to play in their endless victim-ho-villain narrative. The mirror that once reflected their false power is gone, and worse still, the one who walked away was the very person they thought would never dare leave. That's when the narcissist begins to spiral into panic. But the video doesn't stop here, because in the next part, you'll witness the full cycle of crisis, rage, smear campaigns and revenge they unleash. Once they realized that the super empath didn't just walk away, they broke free completely. When a super empath walks away, it's not just the end of a relationship, it's the collapse of an entire power structure the narcissist has carefully and manipulatively maintained. And because a narcissist never truly loves, they're not in pain over losing you, they're in pain over losing control. In this next part, we'll dive deep into the 6 stages of psychological crisis a narcissist goes through when they're abandoned by a super empath. Each stage reveals a layer of internal collapse they desperately try to mask with a facade of confidence and emotional detachment. Stage 1. Denial. She wouldn't dare leave. In the first stage, the narcissist simply cannot accept the reality that you've actually left. It doesn't fit their worldview, a world in which everyone exists solely in orbit around them. The idea that a super empath, someone who has forgiven them countless times, could suddenly disappear without a dramatic exit, without a tearful goodbye, without explanation, is utterly inconceivable to them. The narcissist retreats into fantasy. They tell themselves, "She's just testing me. She'll come back like she always does. All I have to do is send a message and she'll respond." They interpret your silence not as a period, but as a pause. In their mind, you're not someone with autonomy, you're supply, your reaction. You can't just disappear on your own. This denial runs so deep that they may not even tell anyone you're gone. They continue posting old photos, still playing the doting partner on social media, still telling friends, everything's fine, because to publicly admit the truth would be to admit defeat, and for a narcissist, failure is unacceptable, even to themselves. Stage 2. Anger. She betrayed me. Once denial no longer holds, reality begins to seep into their conscious mind, and the narcissist shifts into anger. But this isn't sadness. It's not grief over losing someone they loved. It's pure rage, the fury of being rejected. To the narcissist, you were never an equal partner. You were property, something emotionally owned and controlled. You had no right to walk away first. You had no right to end things on your terms. After all the attention they gave you, the compliments, maybe even material gifts, and now you repay them with silence. To them, that's a slap in the face. This anger can manifest in many forms. They send you hateful, insulting messages. They dig up the past to hurt you emotionally. They call you in the middle of the night just to lash out, or bombard you with cruel, venomous texts. But what's even more dangerous is the suppressed anger. When they can't express it openly, they start plotting in the dark. Many narcissists begin planning their revenge during this stage, all while still playing the role of the wounded victim on the outside. Stage 3. Blame and rewriting the narrative. It wasn't my fault. When most people get left, they at least ask themselves, did I do something wrong? But not the narcissist. They cannot accept responsibility, because if they admit fault, the carefully crafted image they've built of themselves begins to unravel. So they rewrite the story. You become the problem. You're cold, disloyal, overly sensitive, too demanding, ungrateful. Everything you ever did, even your forgiveness, is now twisted to fit their new role, the poor, abandoned victim. They spread this new version to mutual friends, family, co-workers, even people who have nothing to do with your relationship, not to process their pain, but to build social proof that they are right. And the dangerous part is, they're good at it. Just real enough to make others doubt you, and just fake enough to stay undetected. This is when you may start to feel pressure from the outside, the side eyes, the subtle questions like, are you sure she's okay? And the people you once trusted suddenly start pulling away, without explanation. Stage 4. Use others to manipulate you. If I can't reach her, I'll use someone else. When the narcissist can no longer get to you directly, they begin to use other people as tools. This is when the flying monkeys show up. People who knowingly or unknowingly become accomplices to the narcissist. They'll pretend to be concerned. I just want to know if she's okay. They'll ask your friends to reach out. He's really hurting. He doesn't understand why she left. They might approach your family playing the role of the caring ex. I still care about her, just like I always have. All of it is designed to pull you back into the reactive role, to make you angry, defensive, emotional, anything, as long as you're still reacting. Because to a narcissist, silence is a defeat. When you stop reacting, they lose their grip on you. And that terrifies them far more than your hatred ever could. Stage 5. Revenge. She's going to regret this. This is the darkest stage, when all their rage and wounded pride morph into calculated destruction. The narcissist begins a systematic campaign of revenge. They might sabotage your new relationship, spread false rumors, interfere with your job, your reputation, even your finances. They may send anonymous messages, post vague and toxic things on social media, or reach out to people who once trusted you to plant seeds of doubt. And if they had any financial or legal power during the relationship, they'll use it to the fullest. They don't just want you to hurt, they want you to regret ever walking away. But what they don't realize is this: you're no longer playing that game. You stepped off the board, and every move they make now just echoes into emptiness. Stage 6. Hovering. The final attempt to pull you back. When all their revenge tactics fail, the narcissist resorts to their last trick: apologies, tears, and fake remorse. They'll tell you they miss you, that they've changed, that you're the only one who ever made them feel real. They'll tap into your memories, your emotions, your compassion, the very traits they once exploited. But you're not the same person anymore. A super empath doesn't return just because someone says, "I'm sorry." They need truth, they need action, they need respect. Things a narcissist can't sustain. And when they realize you still won't react, they go silent. They ghost you, as if nothing ever happened. And it's in that silence that you finally understand they never loved you. They only loved the power they once held over you. These are the 6 stages of internal collapse a narcissist goes through. Not because they lost you, but because they lost the one thing they crave more than love itself: absolute control. And in the next part, we'll explore what happens when the super empath doesn't just walk away, but rises stronger, freer, and completely beyond the narcissist's reach. A normal person, when rejected, may feel pain and confusion, but over time they accept, let go, and begin to heal. But a narcissist is different. They don't let go. They don't learn the lesson. And most importantly, they don't heal. Because to heal, one must have the courage to face the truth, and the narcissist runs from it at all costs. When a super empath walks away, not as a temporary breakup, but as a permanent, no-return severing of ties, it causes a massive ego injury to the narcissist. And for them, this is a wound that never heals. The first thing to break is their illusion of invincibility. In the narcissist's distorted inner world, they believe they're always in control, always the one who decides, always the one being desired. But when the super empath walks away in silence and no longer responds to any of their tactics, the narcissist is forced to face a brutal truth: they've lost control. This collapse doesn't happen with noise. It's like a building rotting from within. The outside may still look stable, but the internal structure is cracking. The narcissist may appear normal on the surface, still smiling, still showing off a new supply, still putting on the same old performance. But inside, they no longer feel all-powerful, and that is what terrifies them most. Then comes the deep emptiness. The super empath wasn't just a former partner. They were the mirror that made the narcissist feel real. Without that mirror, the narcissist is forced to face themselves, and they hate what they see. With no one left to manipulate, they feel purposeless. With no emotional feedback, they don't know who they are anymore. All that remains is an overwhelming void where once there was respect, forgiveness, love, and reflection, now gone. It's important to note, narcissists often find a new supply very quickly. But it's not love, it's a temporary painkiller. They use the new person to fill the void, to prove to the world that they're still desired, still in control. But as they go deeper, they begin to realize this new supply is not the super empath. They don't get the same reflection, the same grace, the same emotional depth. And that realization devastates them. That's why many narcissists remain obsessed with the super empath even years later. Not because of love, but because they want to reclaim the power they lost. They want to prove they still have influence. They want you to react with anger, with sadness, because that reaction makes them feel like they still exist. But when the super empath has healed and no longer reacts, the narcissist is pushed down one of two paths. One, they spiral into a quiet depression, not from remorse, but from the loss of their godlike sense of control. This is dangerous because instead of facing the truth, they dive deeper into their defenses, manipulating others, creating lies, chasing new supply just to feel alive. Two, they escalate their manipulation in future relationships. They don't learn from the loss. They only learn this: next time, I'll tighten my grip. And so the cycle of abuse continues, more intense, more calculated, more destructive. In both cases, they never truly recover. Not because they can't, but because they don't want to. Their ego is too inflated to admit they caused harm. Their heart is too cold to feel true regret, and their world is too distorted to understand love that isn't rooted in control. But here's the good news for the super empath. You walked away from that game, and by walking away, you didn't just save yourself. You did something no one else had ever dared to do. You brought down the narcissist's fortress of illusion with nothing but your silence, your dignity, and your awakened soul. No one truly destroys a narcissist through revenge, but when you no longer need them, no longer search for them, no longer react to them, you place them in a crisis with no exit. And that is something they can't recover from. The next part of this journey takes us to something far more beautiful: the rebirth of the super empath, where you're not just a survivor but a source of light for yourself and for those still trapped in the dark. No one walks away from a relationship with a narcissist without scars. But something extraordinary happens with a super empath. Their scars don't harden them, they make them shine. A super empath isn't just a survivor, they're reborn. And that rebirth doesn't come from self-help books or feel-good motivational quotes. It comes from silent nights no one sees, where they peel back layers of manipulated belief, piece themselves back together from shards, and learn to love themselves without needing anyone else to define them. When they walk away from the narcissist, they're not walking away from love. They're walking away from the illusion of love rooted in control. And that very act creates space for something real. Love for themselves. No more explanations. No more defending boundaries with tears. No more proving their worth to someone who never truly saw it. In that sacred silence, they reconnect with their inner voice, the one that was buried under manipulation, pressure, and denial. The super empath begins to rewrite their story, no longer asking, "What must I do to be loved?" but instead, "Who am I when no one is controlling me?" They learn to say no without guilt. They learn to feel without drowning. And they learn to love without shrinking themselves to make someone else feel comfortable. Boundaries are no longer walls of defense. They become declarations of self-worth. The super empath understands now. Kindness does not mean self-sacrifice. Saying no is not selfish. It is a profound act of self-love. Their boundaries are not just words. They are the filter through which they decide who gets to stay in their life, how they respond to manipulation, and how they retreat in peace without needing to fight, because peace is no longer a luxury. It's the new standard. After everything they've endured, the super empath is no longer naive, but that doesn't make them bitter. It makes them deeper. They no longer fall for flattery or shallow romance. They listen to their gut. The feeling that once got gaslit, silenced, and ignored, now becoming their compass. They're no longer drawn to intensity that burns, but to authenticity that nurtures. They don't need anyone to save them because they've become their own savior. And that is their most radiant form. A soul that has walked through hell, yet carries no darkness, only light, a light to guide others still trapped in the shadows. In the end, rebirth means forgiveness, but not for the narcissist, for themselves. The super empath forgives the times they stayed silent when they should have spoken, forgives the times they stayed too long, forgives the misplaced hopes, the love given to the wrong person, not because those choices were wrong, but because they were proof of a heart that never stopped being open. And when that forgiveness reaches its depth, the super empath is no longer anyone's victim. They are a survivor, a witness, a flame, a mirror for those still trapped in the narcissist's web of lies. They don't need revenge. Their calm, honest presence is already the greatest reckoning the narcissist will ever face. If you are on this journey, remember, you are not alone. And if you are a super empath who once felt lost, broken by counterfeit love, this video is your reminder. Your light was never gone. It was only hidden by someone who never deserved it. But now, you've walked away, and this time, you're never going back, because you've stepped into a place the narcissist can never reach, a life that is free, authentic, and whole. When a super empath rises above a narcissist, it's not just an escape from a toxic relationship, it is the awakening of a new self, purer, stronger, and more profound than ever before. Because the truth is, you are no longer the person you once were. You've shed your old skin. You've walked through a place most people never dare to go. You stared into the darkness, and instead of letting it consume you, you moved through it in silence, with your heart still intact. That is not something everyone can do. That is the triumph of a soul that has matured. Maybe you're still tired. Maybe there are questions unanswered. Maybe some mornings still carry the echo of memories that once shattered you. But know this, none of it was in vain. It doesn't define you, but it has refined you. Not to make you hard like stone, but to make you steady like diamond, brilliant, unbreakable, and no longer afraid of the dark. True freedom doesn't come the moment you physically leave the narcissist. It comes when you stop letting their voice live rent-free in your mind, when you no longer seek closure, when you no longer feel the need to react, to prove, or to win, when you simply live, authentically, deeply, fully, without needing them to witness it. That's when you know you're truly free. And this freedom doesn't come from teaching them a lesson. They won't learn. They'll continue the performance, but you won't be watching, because in your world they're no longer the main character. They're just a closed chapter. And the next chapter, the one waiting to be written, is all yours. Written in your own hand with the language of real love, self-respect, and freedom. If you're still on this journey, be gentle with yourself. Show compassion to the parts of you that were drained by manipulation. Be grateful you woke up in time to walk away. And believe this, on the other side of pain lives a version of you you've never met, one more beautiful than ever before. You don't have to force strength anymore, because you already are strong. You don't need to explain anything, because peace requires no justification. You don't need to go back to prove anything, because your absence has already said it all. And if there's one final truth I want you to carry from this video, it's this: you are not broken, you are not weak. You are not too sensitive. You are someone who loved deeply. And sometimes real love means knowing when to let go, not because the love is gone, but because love is no longer safe to stay. So walk away and walk tall, because the one who survives manipulation is not destroyed. They are the living proof of something extraordinary. Light still triumphs over darkness.